When you put your arms around me, I get a feeling that's so hard to bear. You give me fever. When you kiss me, fever. When you hold me tight, fever in the morning, fever all through the night. Listen to me, baby. Hear every word I say. No one can love you the way I do, 'cause they don't know how to love you my way. You give me fever. When you kiss me, fever. When you hold me tight, fever in the morning, fever all through the night. Sun lights up the daytime, moon lights up the night. My eyes light up when you call my name, because I know you're gonna treat me right. You give me fever. When you kiss me, fever. When you hold me tight.
Check 1, check 2.
Fever
Check 1.
in the morning, fever all
And
through
that's
the
it's
night.
responding to. Check 1, 2.
Bless my soul, I love you. Take me on away. Take these arms I'll never use. Just believe in what my lips have to say. You give me fever. When you kiss me, fever. When you hold me tight, fever.
1, 2, 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
Fever.
Two, 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
você disser que eu desafino amor, saiba que isto em mim provoca imensa dor. Só privilegiados têm ouvido igual ao seu. Eu possuo apenas o que Deus me deu. Se você insiste em classificar meu comportamento diante musical, eu mesmo mentindo devo argumentar que isto é bossa nova, que isto é muito natural. O que você não sabe nem sequer pressente é que os desafinados também têm coração. Fotografei você na minha Rolleiflex, revelou-se a sua enorme ingratidão. Só não poderá falar assim do meu amor. Este é o maior que você pode encontrar, viu? Você com a sua música esqueceu o principal, que no peito dos desafinados, no fundo do peito bate calado. No peito dos desafinados também bate um coração.
Tall and tan and young and handsome, the boy from Ipanema goes a-walking, and when he passes each one he passes goes when he walks he's like a sample that swings so cool and sways so gentle that when he passes each one he passes goes whoa, but I watch him so sadly. How can I tell him I love him? Yes, I would give my heart gladly, but each day when he walks to the sea, he looks straight ahead, not at me. But oh, he's tall and tan and young and handsome, the boy from
Diga sim pra mim primeiro, diga sim, eu vi primeiro. Diga sim de corpo inteiro, diga sim, mas é mentira, tchu-tchu, é mentira. Ira, tchu-tchu, é mentira. Eu não quero ter ciúmes, eu não quero ter queixumes, quero ter você na mira, tchu-tchu, sem mentira. Mira, tchu-tchu, sem mentira. Diga quem pam pam, diga quem pam pam, diga quem pam pam, diga quem. Mas é mentira, tchu-tchu, é mentira. Ira, tchu-tchu, é mentira. Eu não quero ter ciúmes, eu não quero ter queixumes, quero ter você na mira, tchu-tchu, é mentira. Mira, tchu-tchu, sem mentira.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. All right. I know it's Saturday morning. We're going to bring the energy. We have a lot of folks still coming in, so just raise your hand if there's a seat available next to you. All right, we don't get to overflow until we get... Okay, perfect. There's still a line out there, Camille? Okay. So a few people are coming in, be cognizant and help people out if you see someone coming in so they know where there's a seat available. So for those who don't know, my name is Paul Forbes. I'm Executive Director within the Office of Equity and Access in the Department of Education. I'm here with my colleague, co-conspirator, Natalie. Good. Natalie will come up afterwards too, but recognize some of the folks we're going to be, when they come up, we can recognize all the other folks that are doing this. But thank you for coming to day 2 of the Decolonizing Education Conference. 2 years ago, we started. How many people were here yesterday? All right, nice. Welcome back, welcome back. So you could tell the folks how much it costs at lunchtime that they got to pay. So those who are new, they're in for a surprise when they can't get anything to eat until they pay their bills. So thank you. Thank you for coming back. So as I was saying, we started this 2 years ago, and we never imagined. I mean, we had visions of what it would be, and we never imagined we'd get to the level we're at now. So I thank you, whether you participated in the CCER, Critically Conscious Educator Rising Series, or you're part of CREATES, or whether you were from ESI. This work has been going on. Folks have come over from CSS, working with Natalie and her team, the Center for Strategic Solutions at NYU's Metro Center. It's all part of the interconnected family and networks that we have. And so this is a start or continuation of that movement. And so thank you. I will have, last night I was trying to decompress and get ready for today. And I got a message from the Deputy Chancellor, LaShawn Robinson, who was here yesterday, and she didn't know how to say it to me. And she's like, Paul, I hope, you're not too much bummer. I know you're going to feel bad and everything. I'm sorry. And I'm like, what's going on? And she explained that the chancellor has a conflict that came up. And while his handlers and his folks around him are saying, you can't go, he's saying he wants to be here, but he couldn't be here. He won't be able to be here this morning, but he wanted to send his love. He wanted to share that, again, he's been feeling a lot of the community hug, as he's been saying, people wrapping themselves around him and supporting him online or when they meet him. So he wanted to express his, just say sorry first of all he couldn't be here, and just say he knows through the Twitterverse that he will be able to see what's going on throughout the day. And so he did encourage that we, again, use the hashtags that you probably see right there, the hashtags, and memorialize what's happening. Just a quick note. There's a couple people put decolonize ed and forgot that it's 2 E's in between. And so there's some of the tweets are going to decal, whatever that would be. So just be cognizant, 2 E's in between, and it pops up sometime and people press it when they're going to it. So just be aware, 2 E's. Okay. So we're going to get started. What I want to do is the chancellor released a video that I don't know how many people saw it, but I was asked to show it this morning, and so we're going to watch the video of the chancellor with everything that's been going on, and there's been a lot. The chancellor, New York City, the work we've been about, and many of you have been under siege from a small group, but again, it's out there, and so we wanted to speak to that, and so the chancellor released this video a couple days ago, maybe even yesterday, and so I want to show it. And then we're going to get into, we're going to be blessed with actually someone who wrote an op-ed recently who's going to share the op-ed and speak about, again, the personal and professional journey that we're all on, as this is the work that we've been doing with CCER. So let's take a few minutes to hear from the chancellor.
I'm New York City Schools Chancellor Richard Carranza with a few words for our DOE community, all 156,000 educators, administrators, and central DOE staff, all the families who entrust us with the education of their children, and each of the 1.1 million students who are the future of this city and the reason we work for nothing less than equity and excellence for all. As I travel across the 5 boroughs, signs of progress are everywhere. Our work to serve all students to the best of our ability to advance equity now is taking hold at Tweed, in central and borough offices, in parent meetings, and most importantly in classrooms across our city. Now, how do we know? Well, districts are integrating their schools. Graduation rates are at an all-time high and going even higher, while dropout rates are low and going down. Elementary students of all backgrounds are scoring higher on state tests and making progress in ways that aren't cleanly quantifiable, as actively engaged citizens prepare to make the world a better place. But too many schools and too many students are still struggling to perform against decades of disinvestment, structural inequities, and yes, racism. Our job is to challenge the current status quo so that every child in every classroom has the best possible opportunity to reach their dreams. And this work is gaining momentum with each and every day. As we all push forward with this important work, I have 3 messages to offer you today. The first is that now is the time. For too long it was accepted that some children attend good schools with every opportunity afforded to them and others attend bad schools, struggling to meet the very basic needs. For too long it was accepted that some children, often black and brown children, disproportionately face higher discipline and suspension rates and lower access to rigorous courses like advanced placement. For far too long it was accepted that some students, often students learning English and students with disabilities, were subject to lower expectations of how high they could rise. Well, not anymore. Now is the time for change. The second message is that this is the work. As we work to change outcomes for our children, we must confront systemic challenges, including the ones that just come with being humans. One of those is bias. Every one of us has biases, and they inform the way we approach our work in classrooms and offices, and in the way we approach our children. That's why we are providing every employee with implicit bias training as a foundational step to uncover and look at the things we unconsciously bring to our offices and classrooms. See how they become part of the work we do and think critically about what we can all do better. I've said it before, but it bears repeating. One of the reasons it is so critical for us as educators to explore and understand our own unique identities is so that we are better able to empathize with and understand the uniqueness of each one of our children. Our commitment to address systemic challenges is also why we are working to provide every child with an education that is culturally affirming. And it is why we are spreading things like algebra and computer science classes to more students who have never had it than ever before. I know this is difficult work, but I know that as we continue to support one another wherever we are in our journey, we become stronger as a system for the children that we serve. The third message is that we are the people. Make no mistake. Each of us is here for a reason. At this very moment in time, this is important work. You were chosen because you put the needs of children ahead of all else. You already have within you the tenacity to lead our city towards a brighter future. And you are working alongside leaders who are the most qualified, the most student-focused, and the most passionate about serving children. And we are fortunate to stand shoulder to shoulder with you, leading the way. And I have one last message I hope you will carry with you on this journey. I'm with you. I am with you. Whether you're an educator or a staff member or you play another role in our system, tackling the way things are isn't easy. It requires focus and fortitude and fire in the belly. And we all have to support one another. Whether you are an experienced educator or brand new to the work, whether you are in your fourth year expanding AP classes or going to your first training, it requires patience, support, and goodwill from each and every one of us. And we must remain focused on this work, focused on our children. So I'm with you as we work together to make this change. No matter what, we will serve all of our students. We will deliver on the mission that rose up through all of your voices. Equity and excellence for all. This is more than a slogan, it's a promise, and it requires hard work. I could not be more honored to do that work with and for all of you. This is the greatest, most diverse city in the world, a true beacon for the world. So we will not rest until there is one thing our children in all their beautiful diversity can share in common. An education that gives them the ability to dream, and an education that allows them to achieve those dreams. My friends, my colleagues, now is the time. This is the work, and we are the people. Thank you.
You know, so we were, as things were coming in, we've been talking about the strategy to how to respond. And for us who work close with the chancellor, we know where he stands, his cabinet. We had to get a message out because there's been so much. And so again, this was released yesterday, and what's today? Losing track of the days now. Probably Thursday. It was released, and it was important that everyone hears and knows. People have asked for a long time for leadership that stands up. And oftentimes we talk about it, and then when we get it, we don't appreciate it. My father would say, you don't miss the water until the well runs dry. And then you look back and say, well, what were we thinking? I don't know if people notice, I don't know your political affiliations, but I know there were people who spent 8 years, you know, this, that, and that. And now they're seeing some things now, and they're wishing for the good old days. So I would say, you know, appreciate what you have. You know, when we ask for it and it comes, appreciate it while it's here, because when it's gone, you look back and say, I wish, and the question is, what did you do? And how did you stand up? How did you support? How did you show that you're part of this movement and not get complacent and say someone else is doing it? And that's part of the work that we're doing, and why we made a commitment to come together and do this work. And why we also said, I said yesterday, we talked about D-Day and 75 years, and that wasn't one or two countries. That was a coalition. It was a number of people coming together and making a commitment to say, we're going to do this. Many lost their lives. Many suffered casualties. But they said, we have to do this if we want liberation. And that's where it started. And it's important that we bring together folks to say, people say, we want like-minded people, and I get that. But it's not just about preaching to the choir. As I've said before many times, I'm concerned about that because people say we're preaching to the choir, and I keep saying there's people in the choir that still need to be preached to. So let's be careful when we say that, because we make assumptions that everyone is about this, and you could be about this, but there's still work to be done. You got to put in that work. And so we got to check each other and be able to support one another, call in, not always call out. And so one things that, again, we have focused on with this initiative, with this work that we've been doing, is ensuring that it's not just one or two, the quote-unquote usual suspects that are speaking about it. And so a couple days ago, probably about a week ago, I got a message. I got many messages from people as they were seeing in the papers, some of the things that were being said and how we were under attack. And I got a message from someone who's been a part of this community and someone I really admire for the work that she does in her school as an assistant principal in the Lower East Side. And she reached out and said, want to do an op-ed or write something. And 2 days ago, I got, or maybe three, what day is this? Okay, probably 3 days ago, I got, it's been a long couple days, and Natalie keeps working me, so, she just says work. I think we'll come back tomorrow. I think it's a 2-day conference, but we'll come back tomorrow because she just wants to feel the space of being here. And so come and join us tomorrow. No? Okay, she keeps saying no and looking at me, no. She won't even look at me, she just puts her head down and just like, no. So Jody Friedman, assistant principal at Star Academy, she sent me a message, Camille and myself, I don't know if Camille's in the room, Camille's back there, Camille Kinlock, and just said thank you because of the work we've been doing, the way you've pushed and the way you supported and the way you've hugged and made sure I felt a part of, I was able to do this. And then she sent the link, and I remember sitting at my desk and reading it. And it was, again, just part of another day, right? Because the days are running to each other, and everything's due yesterday, and, trying to crank this out. I had to pause. Because this, for me, signified the work that we're doing and why we've been coming together. And saying it's not just about one voice, it's not about, but telling a story. And so what I thought would be appropriate this morning is to have Jody, I don't know if everyone has seen, I'm assuming many have not seen that op-ed, but it was so powerful to me when I sent it to Ruby Fernandez, who is the head of our office, and then to LaShawn Robinson. They were overwhelmed with just joy that, again, this isn't just coming from one area, but a multi-pronged approach. And so I appreciate you publicly. I will say, Jody, thank you for what you did. That's courageous. It means a lot, and it sets the example for what we need. And so I'm going to ask you this time, if you come, read, tell your story so if other folks can hear and be aware of what this is. So thank you. Jody Friedman.
So thanks for having me. I'm super nervous, so my voice might shake at the beginning, but when Paul asks you to do something, you do it. So this is for you, and thank you, Natalie and Megan and Paloma, for helping me find my voice and giving me this opportunity. Thank you. So I am a white assistant principal at a New York City elementary school, and my journey to be able to talk about race and how it impacts our students in schools has made a tremendous difference for me, my practice, and the young people that I serve at my school. I grew up outside of New Orleans in a small town called Destrehan, Louisiana, and we served a population that was about 40% white, 40% African American, 10% Vietnamese, and 10% Mexican. And our school was the top performing public school in the state, which, knowing the state of Louisiana education doesn't mean that much, but it was the best of what we had. And while my high school experience prepared me to go to college and beyond, I noticed that some students in my school and other schools in my city had a very different experience. While our school was very diverse in race, it was 100% completely segregated, similar to New York City schools. And the school used to track students, and when I think about my AP classes, I very rarely had any other students besides white students in my class. And as I reflect back, I realized that these different experiences and outcomes had a lot to do with the privileges that I had as a white child from an affluent background. As I went off to college in the West Coast, I decided to study education and journalism so I could bring social issues to the awareness of young people. And after college, I joined Teach for America and was placed at a New York City school on the Lower East Side, PS 63. At the time, we were on the state's persistently dangerous school list, and we were F-rated by the city. From 14 years of experience as a teacher, and now as an assistant principal at the very same school, which we now call Star Academy, which stands for Students Taking Active Roles, I can tell you that developing an environment that creates equitable outcomes for all children is impossible without talking about race. I know this. I tried. I became aware of my white privilege after college and had informal conversations with my principal about the impact of race in our school. But it took 10 years before we were brave enough to address race directly with our staff. For 10 years, we created equitable outcomes for our Black and brown students by focusing on reading and writing and math. And we spent a lot of time improving our teacher practice, and our curriculum got stronger. And as our curriculum got stronger, behavior incidents decreased because students were more engaged and had different entry points into their learning. And we were feeling really good. We became a showcase school and started sharing our promising practices. And while the work we did really helped lower the number of students performing at a level 1, and our students were and now are outperforming other schools in our districts with similar demographics, we still had a disproportionate amount of Black boys receiving the suspensions and performing lower than other students. With the very best of intentions, we saw that we were still perpetuating the very same outcomes that we were passionately working against. But we only saw that because we had to dig deeper. I thought I was progressive. I was taught by my family to say I don't see color and to say I treat everyone the same way and to treat them the way you want to be treated. And when I first engaged in conversations around racism, I remember my white fragility came out strong. There was tears. There were comments like, I can't be racist. I'm Jewish. We know what it's like to be oppressed. And the naive statements like, I can't be racist. My best friends in college are Black. And I'm so appreciative of my learning experiences, both those that are formal and informal, that led me to understand that by not acknowledging someone's identity, I'm not acknowledging who they are. Their experiences, the challenge that are unique to them, and that in our country, people have very different experiences based specifically on their race. And so it wasn't until a few teachers gave us the nudge to talk about the white elephant in the room. Specifically, me, our teaching staff, we were the white elephant. We were the white teaching staff serving a community predominantly of color. We started by coming together as a school and staff, and we self-assessed our school using the continuum on becoming an anti-racist multicultural organization. We were shocked to find out that we were in the passive stage towards becoming an anti-racist school. We immediately formed an equity team to guide the work we knew we needed to engage in, both with ourselves and our staff. We began to talk about whiteness openly and the 3 I's of racism: institutional, interpersonal, and internalized. And it was hard. And there was discomfort, and there was tears, and there was a nasty New York Post article written about us, and there was pushback. And my principal and I gathered, and we decided, wait, so are we really going to do this? Is this the right thing? And after seeing the pushback that we got, that's when we realized that we needed to double down on this. If this is how our staff feels about talking about race, imagine the mindsets that they're bringing into their classrooms and with our students. And so these difficult conversations were healthy, and they were 100% necessary. The work brought progress, awareness, accountability, reflection, but most importantly, it brought action. Talking about race for white folks can feel so personal, and we often say that it feels like we're being attacked, but it's not an attack. It's discomfort, y'all, and we grow through it. And a huge aha moment for me was that confronting racism in my school and our world was not just about me as an individual. It was about me, but it's also about me and the systems and culture in which I am automatically a part of because of my whiteness. We have to be willing to push through the discomfort for the sake of our students. Discomfort is such a tiny ask for the sake of changing system and practices that are negatively impacting our students, that are causing harm. And so our school became a part of CREATES, and we met monthly with other schools to examine our practices and unpack the institutionalized racism embedded in our school systems. And we got the chance to reimagine what schooling could look like. And then last year, I participated in a mandated 2-day training called Courageous Conversations About Race, which helped educators think about how can we address persistent racial disparities intentionally and explicitly. And then I'm blessed to be in my second year of my CCER series with Erin and Cardozi. I saw Erin earlier. I don't know where she is now, but thank you. I see the hand in the back, provided by the DOE and NYU. And so I so appreciate the many equity-focused trainings being used throughout our school system. Because as white folks, it takes practice talking about race. Many of us were raised to think that white and black were bad words that we weren't allowed to say. So through our equity work at our school, our staff and I have grown together to understand that by seeing one's identity, one can acknowledge the person as a whole, who they are and how that has shaped their experiences. Through PD opportunities that have gone far beyond the traditional one-day workshops that schools are normally offered, it's impacted our practice and sparked ongoing conversations that have helped us grow both personally and professionally. At our school, we did not talk about race previously. We talked about closing the achievement gap through strong instruction and differentiation based on standards-aligned units. Now we've shifted the language to naming disproportionality that exists as an opportunity gap, because the deficit is not in our children, it's in our schools. And so now we directly look for where disproportionality exists in our data and what shifts we need to make to address it. This has led to our school to design more intentional school-level reading intervention programs, and we're working to redesign our data cycles to better monitor student progress. We were challenged by our equity coach, Cardozi, to push ourselves beyond multicultural curriculum and to really create anti-racist curriculum. And so now we analyze our social studies standards to see whose history is being told inaccurately, and then we create our own units to include a holistic and accurate history. We try to ensure that our units of study question injustices and teach students about a variety of perspectives and develop empathy. For example, in kindergarten, our students wrote to publishers to demand representation of more and varied family structures in books. Our fourth graders studied Indigenous people and the impact of colonization. And our first graders read The Colors of Us and developed a love for their unique skin color by naming it something beautiful, like mocha chocolate chip. Student engagement has increased substantially, and so has academic performance. Before talking about race, we were unsure of why our learning environment survey, we received lower ratings from parents in areas like, I feel welcome in my child's school, or I feel like the school partners with me for my child's success. Now we reflect on our identities and how that might impact how we're perceived and how we perceive our families. We use Loretta Hammond's culturally responsive teaching in the brain to better understand how to create true trust and relationships. And as a result, we've shifted our interactions with parents from teachers as experts to families as experts. For example, instead of launching the year with a curriculum night where teachers present to families, we now have listening conferences where families lead by sharing with us about their child. Parents are now invited into their classroom for star reading and math mornings, for publications, and to share about their family. Our survey results have drastically improved. Pursuing racial justice is not about having all the answers. It's about taking the time to slow down and know that there is no right answer, and that there's often no closure, and the work is messy, and the work will never be done. Throughout my personal journey of understanding my racial identity, I've gone through all the stages: denial, fragility, debilitating guilt, the savior complex, otherness, all of those. And I still visit those stages as my consciousness changes. New questions constantly surface. I've learned with and from folks who were patient with me, even though they definitely did not have to. And they were brave enough to bring to my attention harm that I have caused. I roll my eyes at my earlier self who didn't acknowledge color. This reminds me that this work is a true journey, and that I have to have a sense of urgency, but also be patient. If I can shift my consciousness, then so can others. I am a work in progress, and I continue taking time to learn on my own. Last year at Decolonizing It, I announced I was starting a summer book club on Stamped from the Beginning. And I started a book club because the book was this thick and it was just sitting on my bookshelf for like 3 months and I couldn't dig into it. So the book club helped me be accountable. But that book was eye-opening because it was a history that I had never learned. And so this summer, I'll be leading a book club on white fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And so let me know if you want to join. I'm happy to share that information and have you join me. I read a lot, I tweet a lot, thanks to the push from Paul Forbes, who, if you don't tweet, you're just not, there, you don't exist. And follow amazing people on social media who I learn from daily. My journey is complex, but as a white school leader serving Black and brown children, I have a responsibility to unlearn, relearn, and challenge my own complicity. I support the NYC DOE in investing these funds into training all staff on implicit bias and developing equity teams and other racial equity initiatives. Our school systems are creating one set of outcomes for white children and another set of outcomes for Black and brown children. It's common sense. We can't address the causes of these outcomes if we don't directly talk about race. I honestly can't think of a better investment. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you to you all for providing all these learning opportunities. I'm excited to dig into the workshops with you and to continue my journey. And thank you for allowing me to share my journey with you.
Okay. Yeah, so if you're looking for a copy of the article within city limits, Jody Friedman, Jodi Friedman, just Google that. I'm just about to tweet something with the link, so if you follow me, it'll be on there. According to Jody, you're not somebody if you're not on Twitter, so I don't know. That's not true, but she is somebody. You all are somebody. And someone special to me. Thank you, Jody. I just really appreciate, and if you don't know about Star Academy, again, Google, check District 1, Jody, her principal, Darlene Cameron. I know Amy Parker's here also from the school. Just have been doing tremendous work. And Natalie's going to speak about the equity coaches and the teams that have been going into schools, but with Creates, which you can also learn more about on the ESI website of this work, or just reach out to me or Camille or anyone about Creates. We've been doing this, and, mentioned D-Day, that was June 6th. 3 days earlier, at the age of 74, 3 years ago, we lost Muhammad Ali, June 3rd, 2016. And Muhammad Ali, people know about him, they call him the greatest, the GOAT, greatest of all time. But people remember more about Muhammad Ali, not just from his boxing and his records, but about what he did 49 years earlier before he died. 49 years earlier, on June 3rd, the exact date, he said, I'm not going to go into the army and go fight a war. He said, I've never had a problem with any Viet Cong. I've never had one of them call me the N-word. But I live in this country, I'm a champion, and I get called the N-word, and I can't eat at a counter. I won a championship, a gold medal for this country, and I came back, sat down at a counter to eat, and he said, we don't serve black people here. And he said, I wasn't going to order black people. I was going to order a burger, so I don't know what you're talking about. And he realized that after all of that, there's a story that he took that gold medal and threw it into the river because he realized that even after all of that, he was just another black man in this country. But he spoke out and he said, no, I'm not going to go to the army. And they said to him, if you don't go, you're going to be indicted and you're going to be stripped of your title. He said, I ain't going. And at the age of 25, I don't care how you feel about his religion, how you feel about his stance on the war, he took a stand. And he said, I'm not going, and I'm willing to, at the height of my career as a champion, I'm going to give that up. And for 3.5 years, Muhammad Ali was no longer the world champion, at least with a belt. He was still a champion, but he was stripped. And the question I was asked is, what are you willing to do? Where will you take a stand, especially in these moments? Is when, when it's comfortable, it's one thing. It was April 4th, 1967, just a few months before Muhammad Ali takes that stand in June. April 4th, 1967, a little further uptown here, Riverside Church, Dr. Martin Luther King came and he gave a speech, Beyond Vietnam, just breaking silence. And he's saying, this is not the time. And there were people around him who said, do not say anything. Don't conflate the Vietnam War with the civil rights movement. And he kept, again, these are his own inner circle. And then the outside, you can imagine, they said, don't do it. And he said, I have to. How could I stand here and talk about injustice and not speak about injustices around the world? And he went up there, April 4th, it's significant because a year later, he's going to lose his life to an assassin bullet. So for a whole year, he went through, and if you look and see what his ratings were, people talk about right now a sanctified, kind of whitewashed, kind of sanitized Dr. Martin Luther King, but his ratings were in the 30s, not just among white America, but within black America. Think about what happens when you take a stand, when you come out and say, I'm going to speak truth to power. And be other APs and principals and other folks that say, no, that's not our work. We have to teach the kids. But then when you take a stand, what that means and what you might have to give up. But if we're doing it for this movement, if we're doing it for the work, we will have to sacrifice. The question is, are we willing? We know what to do. You just heard. We know what to do. The question is, do we have the will and the inner fortitude to do it? And so, again, as we're here today, I want you to understand, we're not coming here to say, just come to a workshop, hear some stuff, get the PowerPoint, get the worksheet, and say, yay, we had a good day. You're going to have a great day. But what are you going to do when you leave here? And when we meet, God willing, next year again, you come back. What are you going to do in between to tell your story of the transformational work personally and professionally that's occurring on behalf of our young people? Not because of a chancellor, not because of a director. It's not about that. It's about our 1.1 million. It's our communities and our families and how we spread the message, because people look to New York City to say, yes, we are going to move. And so part we're going to have today, again, is now we're going to have Natalie Zwerger, who's going to come up and, again, talk about the work in general, but also think about, again, the personal and what that means for the work that we're doing. So I'm going to keep that mindset as we welcome Natalie to the podium.
Good morning, y'all. How are you? I'm going to put up our hashtag so that our lead tweeter, Paul, has those up there.
You could be somebody.
Yes. So, just roll your eyes like I do, right? This is day 2 of our 3rd annual Decolonizing Education Conference. My name is Natalie McCabe-Zwerger. I am the director of the NYU Center for Strategic Solutions. I am the co-founder and director of CCER, our Critically Conscious Educators Rising series. I am a proud partner of the New York City Department of Education Office of Equity and Access, and I stand with the Chancellor in his commitment to equity and racial justice in this city. There are a number of people I need to thank up front, first and foremost. This conference, CCER, CSS, wouldn't exist without an amazing group of folks, many of whom are with us today, and one who passed far too early before her time. You will see noted in our program that this conference, this moment, our participation in the movement is because of and continuing for Shahira Khalila Love Brand. And so I just want to take a moment to honor her presence with us every day and hope that we are making her proud with all of our efforts. I want to thank my amazing team, first and foremost, Sophia Bolt, who many of you know. Sophia is often called Natalie, Camille, it doesn't matter. So Sophia will just look at you with a smile. She's a graduate student conducting doctoral studies, and she's a phenomenal bedrock of our work. I want to thank Robin, Ali, Erin, Kathleen, Cardozi, Stoop, Nakiba, Anna, Luis Alejandro, and Gigi, everyone from the Metro Center, particularly CEJ, PRE, EJ Rock, TACD, all of the other teams, Paloma Garcia, Raquel Bonnick, Keno Moore, Dr. LaRuth Gray, who's here with us today, for supporting our work. Y'all are in for an amazing day. I want to drop some stats for you to start off. Yesterday, we had 533 educators, activists, advocates, parents, and young people come together in this space to decolonize ed, with 30 workshops yesterday, 30 more today, for a total of 160 presenters, 65 of whom are students. As of today, thank you. As of today, we've had more than 1,000 participants in CCER, our Critically Conscious Educators Rising series. These numbers mean our movement is growing, our sphere of influence is growing, and despite the pushback and the noise, we press ahead. As many of you know, I had a daughter last year, at the end of last year. V is a smart and happy, beautiful baby. I'll proudly show pictures to you if you'd like to see. The future for her is beaming with possibilities and will most definitely be filled with the love of her parents, grandparents, family, and friends. In addition to all of this, racism has a hold on my 6-month-old. Not racism of the KKK type, but as in the system that has been propelling her forward while indoctrinating her with biases and misconceptions of Black and brown people. How can I possibly suggest that a 6-month-old could be privileged by racism? Hear me out. V was born into a system. First, she's the beneficiary of a racist society. Second, she's indoctrinated daily with biases that she may or may not consciously acknowledge as she grows older. A denial of this reality is both utterly wrong and reflective of privileged white folks choosing to disavow ourselves from owning our role in perpetuation of injustice. Systemic racism is a venomous society where membership is automatic and must be rejected not once but in perpetuity, at every turn where it affords you privileges, both visible and invisible to the untrained eye. Let me get concrete for you. My child was born with white skin. From the moment she entered the world, quite literally in the hospital, the faces she saw, her first breath, the people who first cared for her looked like her. She was born to a mother with white skin and a father with white skin. I didn't face great risks in pregnancy or childbirth. According to the CDC, Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from complications related to pregnancy and childbirth than white women like me. In fact, more broadly, I'm more likely to live longer, have greater access to pain medication and mental health treatment, and certainly to have medical professionals who look like me responsible for my care. These are not the experiences of all mothers or all women or all people generally. Beyond my racial privileges, I, and by default my daughter, also benefited from privileges because of my socioeconomic status, because of my status as a cis straight person. So you see, before my daughter was even a week old, she slept on pillows of privilege that neither she nor I did anything to earn. But membership requires no prerequisites. Nothing must be proven. It's all automatic. And there's more. A few days after V was born, we drove home from the hospital, likely recklessly, probably not obeying the laws of the road. We were far too focused on the little peanut in the car with us. I also acknowledge that we consciously and unconsciously know that white folks are stopped by police at disproportionately lower rates than Black and brown folks. Again, because of nothing more than the system, the racist society of which we are members. This trip home is important too because V entered a world where I had a job with parental leave benefits, allowing me to spend the first few months at home with her. This job is also a manifestation of the benefits that the society of systemic racism affords me. A 2017 study found that racial discrimination was no different than it was in 1989, with the exception of a slight decrease in anti-Latinx discrimination. My positionality as a white Puerto Rican doesn't exempt me. I too have been a member since birth. In the first 5 days of life, my child lived and breathed in a racist system. She had barely opened her eyes or cried her first tears before her life took a particular trajectory because of her skin color, because of the skin color of her parents. The biases she already is developing are documented. By 6 to 9 months, infants stare longer at the face of their own racial groups. Older but not younger infants associate own race faces with happy music and other race faces with sad music. I see my role of a parent as modeling and teaching V that this system exists, that her membership was guaranteed from the moment my partner and I knew we were pregnant, and most importantly, that she has a part to play to actively reject it. A responsibility that I try to model every day. I too am accountable for developing a critical consciousness in her that will eventually serve to support her acknowledging and interrupting her own biases. The world has already started to communicate narratives to her, single stories about groups of people. I know there are conversations yet to be had about the intersection of my and her whiteness with our Puerto Rican ethnicity. I anticipate this work will prompt her, as it does me, to confront our racism. It will require that she acknowledge and understand her impact as someone who walks into rooms with the skin of a colonizer, an enslaver, a racist. And it is my promise to her and myself that every day we will work to decolonize, to disrupt and dismantle, to disavow the system, the bias, and the indoctrination by using every 24 hours as another opportunity to manifest a world that is just and equitable. I tell you our story to ask you to push against your own, to challenge what you have internalized, what you have come to accept, and to ask us to collectively stand up and not only envision, but manifest a society where we no longer permit even our youngest babies to grow into a world where colonization is implicit, where white supremacy reigns, and we go about our days acting like that's the only way. Let's use today and every day moving forward to embody something better. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. So at this time, we are going to transition to our keynote speaker for today. Cornelius Minor is someone that, shockingly, I met on Twitter. I saw an article that was written, and I saw that he was in the Twitterverse, and so I said, okay, I'm going to reach out to him. And I appreciated what he was speaking about as he was talking about classroom practices and, again, how we are, the idea of social justice and these terms, again, that we oftentimes throw out there, we use, but what does that mean? And I sent him a message, and he replied back to me. And it wasn't until a couple months later I reached out again about a couple things, and we just started connecting, and finally we were able to meet and talk about this work. And it's been a short period, but it's like, again, that proverbial brother from another mother. He has become a ally, thought partner, just someone who just says, reach out to me, has visited with my team, just sitting down and saying, what time do you need for me to talk? And he's just been a good person. And so I appreciate that. And so we were thinking about who would be that keynote speaker for today as we kick off the second day. Once Natalie and I were thinking about it, and I mentioned Cornelius, who reached out and he was available, he said he'll be here. I think he was just coming in from maybe Texas, I think, but he's here. So just want to welcome and give this time to my good friend and colleague and brother, Cornelius Minor. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
So we doing all right? Let me make sure the mic is good. We good? All right, so I'm a former 7th grade teacher, and so podiums and stuff don't really work for me. I spend most of my days sitting on the carpet with children. So I am so thrilled to be here with you all today, and because I teach, a lot of my work is dialogue. Sometimes I feel like keynotes can be monologue, and we ain't here for that. So we're going to be engaging in some dialogue. One of the first steps of dialogue, I've got a little bit of some assignments for you. Again, I'm a teacher, so I've got some assignments for you, and I'm going to kind of abridge this assignment a bit. But you are sitting near one of the most brilliant people on the planet. Like, if you turn to your left and you turn to your right, you are sitting around, again, some of the most brilliant, passionate educators on the planet. And so here's what I need you to do. So I am going to admire you for 20 seconds while you select one person who will be your partner for the next. So again, I will admire you for 20 seconds while you select one person who will be your partner for the next 12 minutes. Now, here's what I'm going to go ahead and say, and I had to say this at the last time I was messing with Paul, that, again, you all are some of the most brilliant, creative, passionate people on the planet. And somebody in this room who came with their whole neighborhood is going to look at me and say, Cornelius, can I be in a group of 3? Can I be in a group of 4? And I will look back at you lovingly, and I will say, no. So you want to make sure that you select one person who can be your partner for the next 12 minutes. I'm going to give you 20 seconds. Please begin now. Go for it. All right. 5 more seconds. And now that you have your partner, I need your eyes back up here. Now that you got your partner now, can you just please, for me, high five that person so that I can get some visual confirmation? Excellent. So you got your partner. And here's one thing that I want you to do with your partner. I'm going to go ahead and skip to number 3. So I would love for you, now I'm going to give you 60 seconds. You all have National Security Agency tracking devices in your pocket. And I would love for you to show your partner a meaningful photo that you have on your device. And by meaningful, I mean school appropriate. And explain why the photo is meaningful. And here's how it's going to work. You've got 60 seconds to do this. And partner A is going to go first. You know that you are partner A because partner A is the partner with the most hair. So partner A is going first. And even if you bought it, it's still yours. So partner A goes first. And then after 30 seconds, I will say switch and partner B goes next. So partner A, you ready? So partner A, you're going to show the photo and talk about why that photo is important to you. Partner A, please begin. Go. All right, and switch, partner B. And if I could have you back, so of course I got to do my own work. So these are the photos on my device. These are the photos on my device. On the left-hand side, that's my team. That's my family. I am a proud Brooklyn person, proud 6th Streeter. And this is my partner, Cassandra, and me, and my 2 daughters, Indira and Soleil. So 5 and 7. So my life is complicated. And the picture that you have on the right side here is a picture of me in front of my place with my daughters. And the reason I chose this one is because, again, I'm a proud Brooklyn person. I don't own a car. My whole life is played out on 8-block radius. So so my furthest commute in life is 8 blocks. My daughter goes to school on 8th Street. So that's a 2-block walk from my place. My barber shop is on 5th Street. That's a 1-block walk. Grocery store on 9th Street. So I don't really have to go far in my life. So my whole life is 8 blocks, right? And me, I'm pretty quick. So I can cover a city block in 60 to 90 seconds. So a 2-block commute ain't number 3 minutes on a bad day for me. All right. But here's the complicated thing. A 1 minute, a 90-second city block when you're an adult becomes a 10-minute odyssey when you got to walk with the babies. and so here's the parenting hack. The parenting hack where I am is you put your children on wheels. So because again, my daughter, I walk the block like, I'm walking. But my daughter, she got to look at every little flower. She got to check the fire hydrant. She got to make sure the dragonfly's outside. So she got to do all the stuff. And so I put them on wheels. So the oldest one got a scooter, and the little one got a bike. And so when I'm walking, they are riding, and we can get places in appropriate amounts of time. So that's the hustle. And that's how my life works. But this spring, we did something very, very new in the history of the Minor family. Again, I'm not a car person. I don't drive, but I went to the DMV, got my driver's license, so I'm good. I'm official. And we we rented a car, and for spring break, we were going to go on the first ever minor family road trip. So brand new driver's license. I bought all the snacks. I got the iPad ready, got the back seat ready together for the kids. And for spring break, we were going to drive as a family to bond. And we got in the car. We were in the car for about 3 minutes when my daughter looked me in the rearview mirror and she asked the profound question, Daddy, why aren't we there yet? And here's the problem. I don't drive, so that question was new to me. Some of y'all who drive all the time, y'all know that question, but I was stunned into contemplation. And I tell that story to say that when I consider the profound work ahead of us, I often ask the question, why aren't we there yet? And so I want to spend some time theorizing that work with you this morning. That all right? And so here's how I want to think about it. When I think about all that we have been promised, again, the future that we want for our kids, the future that we want for our schools and our communities, we had been promised so much. Back to the Future said I would have a hoverboard in 2012. I ain't got no hoverboard yet. Star Trek said I would have a teleporter last year. I don't have a teleporter yet. Brown said that we'd have equitable schools. Title IX said we'd have equitable schools, and we don't have it yet. So again, when I consider why aren't we there yet, I've got a few theories that I want to study with you this morning. And we've done a lot together. Those of us who occupy these spaces, we have done all the studying, we have done all the reading, we have done all the meeting, we have initiated a movement for more diverse and inclusive books. We've done that. We're in this room. We know Paul Forbes, right? We have studied powerful skill and strategy instruction. We have used universal design for learning to really be inclusive in our pedagogy. We have embraced understanding emotional intelligence. We have examined our own biases. We've even studied the systemic racism and sexism and classism and ableism and homophobia that exists in schools, but we still ain't there yet. And I'm assuming we've done all these things, right? We're in the room, like, check with your partner, make sure we good, make sure we good. Make sure we good. And so again, when I look at all that we have done and all that we have studied, I ask the question then, what keeps us tethered to this reality? And I want to spend my time with you this morning exploring 3 possibilities. That my hypothesis is that one of the things that keeps us tethered to this reality is the belief that things will get better if we wait, or if we hope, or if we say it in a nice tone. And we know that hope ain't a strategy. Hope is a good thing, but it certainly ain't a strategy. That our work is about making structural adjustments to ensure that all people thrive. We know that our work requires continued revision. We're never going to be done. That's the hard part, because we're teachers, we're educators, we're the kind of people that got done with stuff. And so to be in a realm where we don't get done is troubling to many of us. A second theory that I am positing, that there is a belief that some leader is going to come and do this work for me. And we are leader enough. The leader is us. And I want to spend some time studying that with you this morning. And the third theory that I'm putting forward, what keeps us tethered to this reality, is that we spend a lot of time saying yes to things that we should probably not be saying yes to. So I want to explore today with you the radical power of our no. So we've got 3 big things to study. We feeling good? All right. And so I want to start with the first one. So we're going to start with number 1. What keeps us tethered to this reality? And I always like to start with some common nomenclature, some common vocabulary. That we talk a lot about racism, sexism, privilege, classism, homophobia, and I want to make sure that we're good there. And when I talk specifically about school-based racism, yes, I'm talking about all the biases and the feelings, but also I am talking about the very structures of our classrooms and of school, because it's easy to come to the conference and be like, them people over there is racist. It's hard to leave the conference and deconstruct all those racist systems within our own classrooms. And so I want to like do some of that work with you today. And so this is some kind of common vocabulary that I'll be using. And as I've thought about my own work, and what you all very much are getting this morning is you're getting an educator in progress that I ain't done yet. That, you know, that I am still in it. Many of you know, some of you are my co-parents. Y'all see me around District 15 with my own kids in my own classrooms. And this is stuff that I am really mired in. And there are three big things that I have had to learn in my own work that I do. And I want to explore that publicly with you all. That one of the things that often happens is people say, well, Cornelius, you're trying to change too much. You can't do it. Or Cornelius, you want us to learn too much or do too much. Or the kids come and sometimes they mean to me, so we can't do it. And so I've really had to study, how do I change can't to can. And so these are the three things that I am learning, gerund form here, so that I am in this. Like, I've really had to learn how to identify and change the things that are not working. And I want to walk through that process with you today. I've had to learn how to do and trust my own in-school research, that we always waiting for the expert to do the research for us, and ain't no experts, it's us. So I've had to learn and trust to do and trust my own in-school research. And finally, I've had to learn how to communicate my ideas in ways that honor my learning. Because sometimes I get bad and I want to get in people's face and tell them things. And so I've had to really learn how, like, okay, how do I communicate this thing in a way that honors the thing that I am learning? And so as we create change, it's important to note at the Decolonizing conference that after the colonizers have ravaged our land and taken our resources, it is well documented that the last place that the colonizer leaves is your mind. And so one of the things that I want to think about as we do schoolwork is not just how do I free the folks at school, but how do I free myself and my own practices? And for me, because I'm a nerd, the answer is research. And so I want to walk you through a little research protocol that I use often. That whenever I am trying to create change at school about anything, one of the first things that I do is I read a little bit. You notice it doesn't say read a lot bit, because I ain't got time for that. I got 2 kids at home. And so I read a little bit. And I read a little bit just to get smart, to know what I'm talking about. Lots of times when we speak up from heart. And I'm really trying to get to a place where I speak up with heart, but also speak up with facts and statistics and best practices or promising practices, what other people are doing. So I read a little bit. But then I go ahead and decide what I want to do, and I plan for it. You notice step 2, don't say ask the principal. Step 2 does not say ask Paul Forbes. Step 2 is I go ahead and I decide what I want to do and I plan for it. Because again, the revolution does not require permission. That I go ahead and decide what I want to do and I plan for it. So I've got it, I'm imagining a change. And what's interesting is this year I've spent studying lots of disproportionality, especially in District 15 where I live and work. And a story that I've been telling often, because I finally got the clearance to share the student names and the student data, but a story that I tell often. One of my favorite educators on the planet is a woman named Lori. She was my literacy coach when I worked at the Brooklyn School for Global Studies, K429. I had a brand new teacher in 2000. That was my first year teaching, and Lori was the literacy coach that raised me. So for 8 years, this woman was my literacy coach. So I came to that school knowing nothing, and this is the woman that took care of me. She called me on Sunday night, make sure I have my little lesson plan together. She really took care of me for 8 years. Now y'all know how the DOE does. When somebody gets good at their job, they get moved to another building. So after 8 years, Lori became an AP in another building, and I was so proud of her. But also I was so sad because that's my person. She really helped me to become the person that could stand in front of kids and do what I needed to do. And so when she got moved to another building to be an AP, we did that thing that you do when your friends move, where you're like, I'm gonna still call you. We're still gonna be friends. and so, but Lori has the kind of integrity where she did that. And so even as an AP and eventually as a principal, to this day, that woman still calls me on Sunday nights to make sure that my lesson plans are together, to make sure that I'm feeling ready. She's like, you ready for the kids? And I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for the kids. And that's just the kind of person that she is. And last March, when she called me, and this is a story that I share often, but like last March when she called me, again, and this is an infinitely positive woman. She always has the answer. But last March, she was like, "How you doing, Cornelius?" I was like, "I'm good. How you doing, Lori?" And she was like, "I am all bad right now." And I'm not used to hearing her talk like that. Again, this is the woman who raised me as an educator. And I asked her, I was just like, well, why? And she's like, "Well, Cornelius, I'm the principal now, and it's different. It's real different." And I was like, how is it different? Like, I got your back. I got a little bit of time this week. I can help you. And she said, well, this month I suspended 12 kids as the principal of my school. And that's just not how we do at my school. And it's tough for me because I think that there is a racial dynamic to this. And I was like, well, what you mean? And she was like, well, 12 of the kids that I suspended, of that 12, 9 were Black or Latino boys. And the problem with that is Black or Latino boys are less than 20% of my school. And these are numbers that we know. But she was like, but it hurts because I'm the boss. And this is happening on my watch. And so there is something about my leadership and about my people that is perpetuating this outcome on my watch. And she's like, and I can't sleep with that. And so I went over to her apartment and we looked at the office referrals that led to these suspensions. And one of the things that we discovered, just kind of looking, we discovered that of the 12 suspensions, 10 of them had inciting incidents that happened in a social studies classroom. So not in the same social studies classroom, but 10 of the inciting incidents that led to the suspensions came out of a social studies classroom. And so she was like, it's curious. And I was like, ooh, look like you got to talk to your social studies team. And fortunately, Lori's the kind of leader who was going to do just that. She was like, good, we got Monday PD. It's Sunday night. I'm going to redirect the Monday PD, and we're going to talk to the social studies team about this. And we sat in that social studies team, and I was like, oh, I got to be there because I need all the tea. So, so I got to be there. So I ain't go to my PD. I went to Lori PD. And we sat on that social studies team, and she just presented the facts. She was like, there were 12 suspensions. And of the 12 suspensions, 9 of them were Black or Latino boys. Of the 12 suspensions, 10 of them originated in a social studies classroom. She wasn't calling them names. She wasn't calling people out, but she was like, these are our facts. These are realities. And her social studies team, they were game. They were ready to think about it. And we thought, and we thought, and we thought. And one of the things that we discovered was that at Lori's school, science was taught through experimentation. And math was taught in a hands-on way through modeling. Reading and writing was taught through workshop, but social studies was taught through bell-to-bell lecture. And so we asked ourselves the inquiry question, could it be that talking at kids for 45 minutes bell-to-bell is making folks want to hit each other in the face? Again, just a research question, just an inquiry, just an inquiry. And so we had a thing that we wanted to study. And so we asked the further question, what would happen in this case if we changed our methodology? So again, we imagine how that change might happen. We decided that in that case, we wanted to move to centers. So we decided to do some centers-based activities, just to see what would happen. And what was beautiful is we got a small population of kids to study. Some people were like, well, I don't know if it's going to work. Them kids is bad. They curse me out sometimes. And kids tend to curse. We're in 7th grade. But we made a 5-day plan. We decided for 5 days we were going to do centers. And we decided that we were going to measure our data. So for 5 days, we decided we were going to move to centers, and we decided we were going to measure 3 data points. We were going to look to see how productive are kids at social studies. So are kids accomplishing as much or more social studies in their centers? That was the big question. At the end of the day, kids got to do social studies. The second thing that we were going to measure their general affect. So how are kids feeling about their work on the days that we're doing these centers? And then the third thing we're going to measure, of course, is classroom removals. So who's being removed from the classroom at what rate, what frequency? And so we got a small population of kids to study. We made a 5-day plan for implementing our change, and we chose how we were going to measure. And then we did it. Again, we ain't asked nobody. We ain't called the chancellor. We ain't called the superintendent. We ain't called Paul. We just did it. And for 5 days we measured, and then we came together and we looked at our results. And what was powerful is productivity stayed about the same. Classroom removals went down about 40-ish%. So we didn't eradicate classroom removal altogether, but fewer kids were removed from classrooms, and kids self-reported. We just took iPad video as kids were exiting. But kids self-reported that they felt happier and more excited to be in class. So did we eradicate suspensions? Absolutely not. But did we reduce classroom removals? Absolutely. And so in the context of Lori and her school and her social studies department, one of the things that I like to name is that decision to be more democratic in our classroom methodology was an anti-racist decision. Everybody see me there? That we were looking at how do we reduce the classroom removals for Black and Latino boys, and much like many of us have thought about and said, it wasn't about fixing the boys, it was about fixing the structures of our classrooms that lead to these negative outcomes for the boys that we love. Everybody with me there? And what that taught me is one thing, that even among our friends, even among the people that we love, our classrooms are guided by racist, classist, sexist structures. And it wasn't about changing the whole school. It was about looking from classroom to classroom to classroom to think about how we gonna do this. And so when I think about why aren't we there yet, my guess is that we haven't done enough classroom-based research. Like that, it's always easy to study them, but it became real personal when I had to study me. Does that make sense there? And so that's one possibility. One thing that I'm offering is that we can consider what can it feel like to look at the structures that govern our own classrooms and change those things. Now, one of the things that I really started thinking about was somebody asked the question, well, Cornelius, I ain't racist, my school ain't racist. And so then I was talking to a bunch of boys and talking to a bunch of their parents, and we really wanted to examine what are all the structures? Like, where does the oppression hide in our schools? And so for me, it's everywhere. It's in our decorations. It's in our discipline policies. It's in our classroom culture, our seating arrangements, our recess habits. And so when I think about how do I make change, I'm not looking at the whole system to change it. I'm looking at the constituent parts of the system to begin to change them one by one. Does that feel all right for everybody? Because one of the things that I've been really thinking a lot about in my work is that I have an incredible realm of concern. That there is a lot that concerns me. That I think about the boys and their suspensions. I think about the water in Flint. I think about, like what's going on with our taxes. I have this incredible realm of concern. But when I think about my role as a District 15 coach, like my realm of actual influence is tiny. But I can take that tiny realm of actual influence and I can do something about the recess policies. I can do something about the seating arrangements. I can do something about like the way that we leverage our pedagogy or the way that we speak to each other. And so those little somethings become a big something. Everybody with me there? And so here's what I want you to do. With that partner that you had earlier, what are 2 somethings that you might want to mess around with this week? So as you look at the systems that govern your own classrooms, your own departments, your own schools, that we don't have to wait. People love to come to the PD and say, oh, well, next year I'm gonna try the thing. And for me, I'm really like, what can I do in the next 24, 48 hours? And so what are some things that you might try? I want to give you 30 seconds, check in with your partner. And when you check in, here's how I want you to check in. That I'm in a room, again, with some of the smartest people around. So what has been confirmed for you so far today? Like you're looking at this list, you're hearing me talk. What's been confirmed for you? What is beginning to shift or change for you? And then what persisting questions do you have? So 3 big wonderings. What's been confirmed for you? What's shifting and changing? What persisting questions do you have? Take a few seconds with your partner. Go for it.
Take part in it. 15, 15, don't say that because I'm together. I know you're 15.
Yes, she led one of the workshops yesterday.
So if I could have us back in 15 seconds. If I could have us back in 5 seconds. So again, when we ask the question, why aren't we there yet? What keeps us tethered to this reality? My first hypothesis is that there's this belief that we just gonna wait and time will make things better. You know, and for me, time won't make things better, but articulated study will. That I can choose a thing that I want to work on, gather data about that thing, and then present my findings once I have gathered my data. Does that make sense there? Everybody with me? And so my second hypothesis, and it's going to come with a little bit of storytelling. My second hypothesis is that there's a belief in our culture, because we good people, and good people come from good culture. And in good culture, you wait for your elders, you wait for your leaders to do the hard thing. And so a lot of us spend a lot of time waiting. And I want to disrupt that idea that there will be some great leader that does this work for us. I want to start. It's another photo. It's me, and it's one of my favorite ones to share because it makes my sister so mad. Like on photo on the left is my little sister. She is now Dr. Zoe Johnson at the University of Georgia, and then that's me. And this photograph is our first year of school here in the United States of America. I am originally from Liberia, which is a small country off the coast of West Africa. So I'm proud of Liberia. Okay, I got my Liberians in the house. Okay, I see you with the jollof rice after the session. But I am Liberian, and one of the things that I often talk about when I talk about being from Liberia and here. We came to this country originally because my country was devastated by a civil war. When we describe Liberia, Liberia is an interesting place. Liberia is one of two independent black republics on the African continent. So we are two countries on the African continent. Us and Ethiopia have never been conquered by European forces. So I always tell my comic book fans that we the original Wakanda. And Liberia is, if you Google, you'll see that we were founded by formerly enslaved people who left the United States in the 1800s and returned to the African continent. And so my twice great-grandfather, so my great-great-grandfather was a Virginian. And we don't know much about him, but we know that my twice great-grandfather was a Virginian who had enough of Virginia and got on a boat and went back to the African continent. Now, one of the things that I often mention about my twice great-grandfather, and again, our oldest family heirloom is the ticket that he bought to exit this country. And so that was in the late 1800s. We know that about him. And the second thing that we know about my twice great-grandfather is that he was literate. And I put this in almost all the talks that I give, that one common refrain that we have held on to in my family is this reality that literacy makes you unfit for oppression. And I'm a literacy teacher, and I'm a proud literacy teacher for almost that exclusive reason. And so when we think about Liberia, though, things got dicey for us in the 80s because there was a civil war. There was a U.S.-funded military coup. You know how the United States does. They destabilized other people's governments. And so my family found ourselves in the interesting predicament where we're back on a plane back in the United States. And we're like, how the hell, after 2 generations, like, are we back here? But here we are. Y'all got Cornelius Minor in the U.S. again. And the Civil War got really intense, and the deciding factor was all of my uncles were murdered on the same day. And so my father kind of knew that he was next, so he was like, I'm collecting my family, we are walking to the airport, and we will be at JFK in 18 hours. And that's how I entered this country. And my father, because he is such a fiercely West African man, one of the things that he did was he spent his entire life just wanting to make sure that my sister and I had some sense of normalcy in this country, that walking out of a civil war was not a thing that he wanted for his children to be an enduring memory. And so he worked very, very hard to make sure that we were as American, as safe as possible, right? And so that's me at age 8. But then here's how life does you. Here's what life does to you. One of the things that I think about, and this is like my original language, and I'll kind of talk a little bit about that. But one of the things that I think about years later, so at age 8, I come to this country out of a civil war. At age 18, I enroll in college. I'm an undergraduate at Florida A&M University. For those of you who know, I see my FAMU people in the building. All right. So I'm an undergraduate. And for those of you who don't know, y'all need to know. So I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all. Florida A&M University is the best institution on the planet. Florida A&M University is the largest historically black college, publicly funded historically black college in the state of Florida. Florida A&M University graduates more black teachers than any other undergraduate institution. And in 1997, when I was at Florida A&M University, because of our work specifically in education with graduating black teachers and diversifying the workforce, we were designated as Time Magazine's College of the Year in 1997. So if you look back, Time Magazine College of the Year 1997. Now, what's messed up about that is when some folks see our folks thriving, they can't have that. And so in 1999, again, this is the eve of my entry into the profession. I graduated in 2000. I became a teacher in 2000. In 1999, and this was before we had the language for terrorism, it was pre-9/11, before we had the language for school shootings, this was just after Columbine, my campus was bombed by a racist. This is the article. You see my name down there in the lower left-hand corner. I was student body president at the time. I was in class in the morning, heard explosions. This is on a college campus in the United States of America in 1999. So I'm not talking about Europe. I'm not talking about Africa. I'm talking about Florida, USA, 1999. And it was difficult for me. Like, a lot of my classmates were going back home, even though we had graduation. They were like, we can't stay here, we're not safe. And that's how them folks do us, right? Like, as soon as you start getting a little something for yourself and your people, then certain groups of people can't have that. And I called my father, and I felt really odd at this time. And my father asks, do you want to come home? We'll give you a semester, you can be home, and then you can graduate later. But I already have my job lined up in New York City. I was coming back to New York. And I was like, nah, Dad, I think I want to stay. And this is my fierce African father who wanted his kid to have a normal life. My father said, okay. And I was like, what you mean, okay? I was ready for him to be like, boy, come home. And so I was like, what you mean, okay? And one of the things that my dad reminded me is my father said, Cornelius, you have seen the fall of a democracy before. This ain't new to you. And so you are uniquely equipped to be there on that campus, to finish your degree, to become a teacher, because we need you. And when I think about us, collective, us, those of us at this conference, us, those of us who follow Paul Forbes on Twitter, us. When I think about us, we've seen these things before, that this ain't new to us. And one of the things that my father implored me is he was just like, because you have seen these things before, you know the nature of what those folks can do to you. And when you know the nature of what those folks can do to you, you know what they're capable of, and you can design defenses against it. And so we know the nature of the work to be done. And we know what those who oppose the work are capable of doing, but we're also smart. and we can design defenses and approaches and ideas that ensure that we do well and that we win. And so for me, that idea, again, what keeps us tethered to this reality? The belief that someone will come save us. We're really good at saving ourselves because we've been doing it for generations. Yeah. And the last thing that I want to leave us with is when I think about what keeps us tethered to this reality. For me, the third thing that comes up lots is I think we spend a lot of time saying yeah to stuff that we should say no to. And when I think about our heroes in history, most of our heroes became such because they got real good at saying no. You know, like that when we think about Sister Rosa Parks, like she did a lot in the community, but her most profound thing was no. You know, when we think about, you know, all of the people who have created and accomplished, yes, they were generators, but also they knew to decline the things that weren't good for them. And so as I think about our work, it becomes especially difficult to live and work in community spaces where people want us to do things because they said so. So Cornelius, you got to teach the curriculum because that's the curriculum. You know, Cornelius, you've got to do this thing because the assessments are due. Or Cornelius, you need to send this kid to the office in this way, and this is how you speak to them because that's how we do things here. And it has been incredibly liberating for me to explore the power of my own no. And I want to talk to you about how to do that because one of the things that I keep asking myself is how do I stay radical and job secure? So, because the baby's got to eat. So I've really been playing around with that. Like, how do I stay radical and job secure? Because again, if I lose the job, my wife will not be happy. And my African father, you know, African fathers love jobs. And so, so how do I stay radical and job secure? And so I invented a thing. I really wanted to be able to say no in ways that are productive. And so what you have here is a guide for saying no. And I want to walk us through this, and then this will be our last thing for today. And I know the print there is small. And so on page 68 in the books that they gave you is also this guide for saying no. And I want to walk you through this because this has been really career defining for me. When I think about how do I tell people who have the power to withhold my paycheck, hell nah, I ain't gonna do that. So for me, one of the things that has been really important for me is that I want to assume that everything that people are asking me to do is coming from a powerful place and coming from a good place. That I like to think, and maybe this is my relative youth, I'm 41 still, but I'd like to think that none of us got in this because we actively want to harm children. None of us got into this because we actively want to harm. Now, some people implicitly harm children, and we can talk about that at another keynote, but I don't think anybody set out to actively harm children. And people often ask me, they're like, well, Cornelius, then, you know, what are your politics? Like, you're getting political in my school. And one of the things that I often say is that, you know, we're educators. And that fundamentally as educators, our work is to create opportunities for children. And eventually to teach those children to create opportunities for themselves and for others with respect to the myriad communities of people that share this planet. That's our work, to create opportunities for kids. And I always say that anything that stands in the way of opportunity for children is our enemy, period. It has to be. So when you ask me what my politics are, I am radically pro-kid. That like anything that stands in the way, anything that abridges opportunity for children, like we can't let that rock. And so I always assume that whatever people ask me to do for children, I always assume that it's coming from a good place. That's my assumption that I make. And then I listen carefully to the advice, and I try to hear that advice with my students in mind. So Is this thing that somebody's asking me to do, is it going to support or affirm or sustain the work that I want to do with my kids? Is it going to reach them where they are? Is it going to get them where they need to go? So I ask myself all those questions when they ask me to do the thing. And as I ask myself all those questions, if I answer yes to most of those questions, even if I don't go agree with the thing, I go ahead and do it. Because if I ask myself, okay, is the thing going to support the kids? Yes. Is the thing going to affirm the kids? Yes. Is it going to meet them where they are? Yes. Is the thing going to get them where we need to go? Yes. If those are yeses, even if I don't like the thing, I'm going to go ahead and do it because I'm pro-kid. Everybody with me there? Now, sometimes I ask myself those questions, and there'll be some no's in there. So is the thing going to support the kids? Not quite. Is it going to affirm the kids? Maybe not on Tuesday. Is it going to, and so if I start asking those questions and I get some no's, then I take a different approach. Then what I do is I consider the advice, but then I think about what changes or tweaks I'll need to make to the advice in order to better serve the kids. Everybody with me there? And then once I make those changes or tweaks, I run it through that research protocol that I shared with you all earlier. So I make the changes or tweaks, I research it for 5 days in my classroom to make sure that the changes are having the desired impact on outcomes in my classroom, and then I proceed. So I got the advice, I customize the advice a little bit, and I proceed. Everybody with me there? Now, if I ask myself those questions and I get a lot of no's, now we got some problems. So is the thing going to support the kids? Not quite. Is it going to affirm the kids? Not quite. Is it going to meet them where they are? Not quite. Is it going to get them where they need to go? Not quite. Now I'm in trouble, right? Because I've been asked to do something that's not going to support the kids that I love. And so now I got to give a no. But before I give a no, one of the things that I do is I follow the advice earnestly for a week. So for 5 days, I give it 5 school days, and I follow the advice earnestly for 5 days. And I run it through that research protocol again. So for 5 days, I'm looking at student affect. I'm looking at student productivity, just to measure, is the thing going to work? Because somebody asked me this from a good place. So I do the thing for 5 days, and I want to make sure that my skepticism is not going to undermine my work. So I do the thing in good faith for 5 days while I'm collecting my data. And then I collect my data and I look at it. And if my data proves my hunch correct, I can show back up to the office to say, I did the thing for 5 days in good faith. Here's the data that it generated. It's not working for the kids. We got to change it. Everybody with me there? But sometimes I'm proven wrong. Sometimes I do the thing in good faith for 5 days and I'm like, oh, look at that. It worked. I ain't like that dude, but look at him. I use this because this gives me the power to leverage no, not as an act of defiance, but to leverage no as an act of communal insight. Everybody with me there? And so one of the things that I want to put forward for us then, again, because we're about to go have some amazing sessions, and when we think, again, about why aren't we there yet, I'm imagining that we can get there relatively easily. That people like to say that the journey is hard, which it is, but any journey that you take with your friends, and again, I started this talking about me being in that car with my kids, any journey that you take with your friends, though it is hard, it is always, always, always worth it. And so as I close, one of the things that I want to lean on is this idea that we don't need everybody to be in the car with us. That lots of times folks say, well, I can't make it because I can't get my whole department on board, or I can't make it because my whole school not with me, or I can't make it because my grade team, I got 4 people on the grade team that don't like me. And we don't need everybody with us. And Paul Forbes talked about Martin Luther King earlier, and people like to think that the civil rights movement was thousands of people all the time. But in Why We Can't Wait, one of the things that King wrote about was at the beginning, it was 4 dudes in the church basement. It was him, Andy Young, Abernathy, and then they got John Lewis to cut school. It was 4 people in the church basement, and so one of the things that I always ask is, who are the people in the basement with you? That you don't need the whole neighborhood, you don't need the whole department, but who are the people in the basement with you that are going to do the work, collect the data, present your findings. Because here's what I'm seeing in the work that I do in schools. What I'm seeing is that once we get the work going and kids start being successful, then people walk over like, well, Corn, what y'all doing? And so what starts out as 4 people in the basement easily becomes 6, becomes 17, becomes a department. Is everybody with me there? And so thank you for your time this morning. And I want to send you forward, just colleague to colleague. I want to, again, thank you for your commitment to children, to our communities, to this work. And I want to send you forward just kind of knowing that, again, this isn't going to be 5,000 people at a march. This isn't going to be the movement that they talk about on the Hallmark special 10 years from now. But this will be earnest work that you do with peers, with friends, and there will be obstacles in the way, but we are bigger than that. So thank you. Yes.
So, thank you. Thank you to Cornelius. If you were fortunate, because I don't think everyone, it was the first 100, 150 people, I believe, got the book. I'm sure at some point Cornelius will sign his book. So, thank you. I want to make sure there's something else I do before we separate. So, if you're a presenter and you're presenting today or presented yesterday, I just want you to stand. What time today you present, but just stand if you're a presenter. Just stand up. I want to recognize these folks. And there's many who were not here yesterday. I mean, they're not here today, but they were here yesterday. And so for the students and the other presenters, I want to say again a heartfelt thank you. It's always fascinating. You know, I present all the time at conferences, and we go around and we take things for granted. And so when you were starting this, some people were saying, what do you mean I got to present in front of people? And I'm like, well, yes. Like, this is what we do. And they were like, oh, we teach and we work and we present to youngsters all day, and still something about doing a presentation in front of people kind of freaks people out, right? So I want to say again, thank you for doing this and being willing to be vulnerable and taking that time to put this in. So thank you. That being said, I know what happens at conferences. People kind of start talking to each other, networking, speaking to the speakers and everything, and then the session begins, and then all that work that folks have put in, folks aren't in the room yet, or they come in and start sliding in. I'm going to ask that we try to, as much as possible, get to the sessions to support the work that folks put in, to be here, to share. So please support first session, second session, and I know the third session, it is Saturday, but still I ask folks, don't eat the lunch and disappear. Please come back and support one another. A couple of other announcements, talking about just going back to the 4 people. So the one person you didn't mention is Harry Belafonte, was also part of this because he had a lot of money, and so the bail money was often raised with Harry Belafonte. And so I know when you're talking about keeping a job, being radicalized, or keeping a job, I know we got to think about who's supporting. So I was talking about that because Camille Kinlock is my person who has the bail money for me whenever I get into yeah, she keeps it right in the purse. So she monitors what I say. And so when I want to be a little radical, just a little, whether on Twitter or otherwise, she steps in and says, you know, Paul, we're low on funds today, right? So she warns me when I go in conferences to behave, and I think she has a buzzer under my armpit that she buzzes every once in a while to make sure I get there. So appreciate Camille. Want to recognize Camille because, again, oftentimes we have people behind the scenes who are doing a lot. Natalie speaks about Sophia, who still hasn't come up. I think she might still be downstairs. But again, there's a lot of folks we know behind the scenes. You know, I'm oftentimes the face of, not the best, but that's all right. I'm the face of a lot of this work. But Camille is the one, if I didn't have Camille as my right-hand person behind me, besides me, this wouldn't happen. And so one initiative that we have been working on the peer-to-peer mentoring program, right? So Thursday at Baruch College, is Alex still here? Alex Lozada. So Alex Lozada, this is the other face. When I speak about Baruch College, Alex has been a great partner from CUNY. We work together, and so on Thursday at 4:30, we have a showcase, peer-to-peer showcase. I think we had flyers yesterday. I don't know if we have today. We don't have any more today, but I would let folks know there's a great opportunity if you're in a school, CBO, partner if you're looking for elementary, middle, high school, of what a peer-to-peer program. They're mostly all high schools, some middle schools, but talk about what that could look like. See Camille, or you can see me to get the link so you can register. We want to have that space. Young people are coming to share what they've done, and we want to have support again, especially from adults. Doesn't matter what level you're in. We have, I see like Chloe Diamond from 206, my sister's school, where I know they came last year and implemented for the elementary and middle school of how to do a peer-to-peer program. So I want you to, again, find Camille during, not now, you're going to your next session, so don't go to your session, but find Camille or find me at some point today if you want to register or get more information about this. The schedule, just talk to me. What time are we starting now? 11:15? So 11:15, right now you were scheduled to start at 11 o'clock, is that right? You were scheduled to start at 10:40, okay. We're gonna start at 11:15, is that right? 11:15 start, and we go until, what time would that be? I don't do math well, so. Full 75, and then lunch will be 45. We'll truncate lunch, 12:30, right? So folks, 4th floor for lunch. After your session, it'll be 75 minutes. Don't leave early because you think it won't be ready for you until it's ready. So give your presenters that respect. Stay with your session. We'll move things up. We'll cut down lunch. We'll get going. Folks, thank you very much. Enjoy your day. Have a lot of fun.